The evening light lay bruised across the horizon. The last orange melting into the endless gray of the Gulf. Elias Crow stood at the edge of the pier, one hand wrapped around the salt-rough railing, the other resting on the worn wood of a crate. Beside him, a large white gull shifted on its perch, fixing him with a dark, intelligent eye. Gulliver had been with Elias for almost 8 years. A half-wild thing he'd rescued after a hurricane. Most days, the gull ranged free over the water, but today it stayed close, as if it sensed the weight in the old man's bones. A week ago, Elias's son, Matthew, had died at sea. The news stations had called it an accident, a tragic fluke during a night fishing trip. The Coast Guard report said the fog was thick, the waves unpredictable, and that despite immediate rescue attempts, the victim could not be recovered. But Elias knew better. He'd seen it. That night, Matthew had been at the helm of the Josephine, their 32-foot fishing trawler. The air was heavy with mist, visibility barely 10 yards. Elias had been gutting a red snapper on the stern when Gulliver gave a harsh, unnatural cry. The bird's wings flared wide, body tense. Matthew looked over, puzzled. "What is it, old boy?" The answer came in a blur, a sudden, violent splash, and the black mass surging from the water. Something enormous latched onto Matthew's arm and yanked him overboard with such force the railing splintered. Elias dove in without thinking, the salt burning his eyes, his hands grasping at nothing but churned foam. Through the murk, 2 great yellow eyes opened below him, and in the sickly gleam of the boat's deck light, he swore he saw a curve of teeth and a smile. Then the thing pulled his boy down into the dark. For days afterward, Elias didn't leave his house. He kept Gulliver's water dish full, fed it fish scraps, and sat on the porch staring out at the bay. His mind replayed those eyes again and again. How they held no fear, only a kind of ownership. On the 7th night, Elias locked his front door and dropped the key into the mailbox. He walked to the dock with a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. Inside was an old spear gun, a hunting knife, 2 flares, and 3 coils of rope. Gulliver followed him, hopping along the railing until Elias stopped. "You don't have to come," he murmured. The gull cocked its head, then looked toward the open water. Elias sighed. "All right then, for Matthew." They set off into the night. The Gulf was flat at first, the motor's low hum mingling with the slap of small waves against the hull. The fog thickened by the mile, swallowing the horizon until there was nothing but gray above and gray below. Midnight passed. Elias scanned the water, every nerve straining.
Gulliver stood near the wheel, feathers slick with mist, watching the darkness with the same patience as his master. It wasn't until 2 a.m. that it appeared. Far off the bow, something broke the surface. A dome of slick black hide glistening under the decklight. Then came the eyes, twin orbs of molten gold, unblinking, fixed on them. Gulliver's wings spread wide, his cry sharp enough to cut the fog. Elias lifted the spear gun, heart pounding. The creature lingered, then began to drift backward, not fleeing, but beckoning. "Leading us out," Elias muttered. "All right, we'll follow." They chased it miles from shore. The swell grew, the wind sharp with the scent of an oncoming storm. By the time the first sheets of rain hit, they were in open water. Lightning flickered, briefly sketching the horizon in jagged white. Elias eased the throttle back and squinted into the dark. "This is it, Gulliver. We kill it here, or not at all." Thunder boomed overhead. The boat rocked, spray stinging his face. The creature was gone from sight. Only the heave of the black water remained. Then glass shattered. Something slammed into the starboard window, claws ripping through the cabin frame. A flash of those teeth, a hiss that sounded almost human, and hot pain tore into Elias's shoulder. He dropped the spear gun. It clattered across the wet floor. Gulliver shrieked and dove at the intruder, wings beating furiously, beak snapping at its eyes. The thing recoiled, vanishing back into the storm. Blood poured down Elias's arm, but he staggered after his weapon. "Come on, you bastard," he growled. "Come finish it." Chapter 2. Salt Water Eyes. The rain thickened until the world beyond the deck was a shifting gray wall. The Josephine pitched and groaned under the assault of the waves. Elias gripped the spear gun tight in his good hand, his other arm slick with blood. Gulliver clung to the railing, feathers flattened against the wind, eyes darting toward the shifting shadows beyond the hull. The gull's gaze was keener than Elias's in this chaos. More than once in their years together, the bird had spotted trouble before Elias could blink. Through the roar of the storm, a low, guttural sound reached them. Not quite a growl, not quite the groan of the ocean, but something that lived between. It seemed to come from everywhere at once, weaving itself into the wind. Elias adjusted the safety on the spear gun and moved toward the bow, every step timed with the roll of the vessel. Lightning flared, and for an instant he saw it, the slick arc of a fin breaking the surface, massive, wrong in proportion. "That's you, isn't it?" he muttered through clenched teeth. The creature struck again, this time from port side, slamming the hull so hard Elias had to grab a cleat to stay upright. Salt spray and rain blinded him, but he could hear Gulliver's frantic cries above the storm. The bird launched into the air, circling once before diving toward a spot in the water where ripples spread unnaturally wide. Following Gulliver's lead, Elias edged to the port rail. In the strobing flashes of lightning, two yellow eyes bloomed from the dark water, closer this time, glowing with that same unholy calm. "You took my boy," Elias said, voice hoarse, the words nearly stolen by the wind. "You don't get to keep him." He fired. The spear shot through the rain, striking deep. The water erupted, a terrible screech rising above the thunder. For a moment, Elias thought it might be over, but then the surface broke and the monster came for him. It was faster than he'd imagined. One moment it was 10 feet out. The next, its mass slammed into him, knocking him onto the deck. Claws like hooked knives raked across his chest. He could smell it now, brine and rot, and something coppery like blood long dried. Elias grappled for his knife, but the creature pinned his arm. Its head dipped low, mouth opening to reveal rows of jagged teeth. The eyes, they were so close now, and in them Elias saw not hunger but something worse, possession. A shrill cry split the air. Gulliver hurtled down from above, striking the creature's head with his beak and wings. The monster snarled, twisting to snap at the bird. And in that heartbeat of distraction, Elias wrenched his knife free. With a roar, he drove the blade up into the creature's throat. Hot, thick fluid gushed over his hand. The beast thrashed, claws tearing at the deck, but Elias held on, forcing the knife deeper until the screeching stopped. The body went still, save for a faint twitch of its tail. The yellow eyes dimmed, though they did not close. Elias pushed the weight off him, chest heaving, and staggered to his feet. He hauled the carcass toward the stern, every muscle in his body screaming. Rain washed the blood from the deck in red streams. When he reached the rail, he paused. "This is where you go back," he said quietly, though his voice shook. "But you go back empty." He shoved, and the body slid into the gulf with a dull splash. The waves swallowed it without ceremony. The storm began to ease, though the sea still heaved beneath the boat. Elias leaned against the rail, exhausted. Gulliver landed on his shoulder, feathers damp, pressing close as if to reassure him. "You did good, boy," Elias murmured. He reached up, touching the bird's chest gently. "Couldn't have done it without you." Then he pulled out the flare gun. A single red bloom tore the night sky, its reflection quivering in the water below. "I'm sorry, Gulliver," he whispered. He closed his eyes and let go. The Gulf water was shock cold, but Elias didn't fight it. He sank slowly, the salt burning his wounds, the weight of his grief heavier than the sea. Above him, he thought he heard the gulls cry, sharper now, but it faded with the light. When the Coast Guard found the Josephine the next morning, she was adrift in calm seas. A lone, white gull stood on the rail, feathers stained with blood, staring down into the green depths. And that's how the story spread along the coast. The story of the man, the bird, and the thing with saltwater eyes.